Welcome to another edition of Unplug from Worldly Thinking. With me, as always, is my friend and brother Patrick. How's it going, Patrick?
Going well, man. Excited to get back into our workshop. It's workshop teachings, series of workshop teachings we're doing right now.
Yep, teaching people to unplug from worldly thinking, become better versions of themselves. And I think we still got about probably 4 or 5 in the original series. And then I have
Mm,
some ideas probably for another 3 or 4 that I'm going to talk to you about on the Christmas break.
gotcha. Sounds
And
great.
yeah, everybody probably just got done celebrating Thanksgiving last week. Hope that went well for everybody and had good food and good family and good friends and enjoyed all that stuff.
That was
This,
excellent for me and John as well.
yeah, absolutely. We did Thanksgiving separate. He had his wife and their families, and we had my wife and our family, and it was awesome. This week's teaching, we're going to get into freedom from anxiety. Anxiety, like many other things we talk about, stress, anger, depression, is one of those debilitating, intense emotions. Only has value in life threatening situations, like we say with all intense emotions. But we're going to go ahead and get into exploring anxiety a little bit more in depth. Let's go ahead and look at the definition. Anxiety by Merriam Webster is a feeling of intense worry, fear, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something involving an uncertain outcome. Having feelings of anxiety and suffering from an anxiety disorder are two very different things. And people don't understand that when it comes down to being diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, besides feeling intense feelings of an anxiety, those things are two different things. One's a feeling, and another thing is a diagnosable condition that's having an effect on one or more environments. So let's talk about some of the anxiety disorders specifically. The first one, specific disorders that involve extreme fear or worry, and those are generalized anxiety disorder. It's probably the most common. Panic disorders or impulse panic disorders, phobias or specific phobias, agoraphobia, which is being a fear of going out into places. I guess let's back up. The different phobias that are out there. There's fear of heights. There's fear of spiders. There's fear of snakes. There's fear of swimming. There's fear of falling. There's fear of flying. A phobia is any deep fear for something that is truly unwarranted within the act of itself. Be like if you're afraid to go to war, that's normal. If you're afraid to go get into a fight, that's probably normal. You're afraid when somebody pulls a gun and sticks it into your face, that's warranted. Again, fear, anxiety, these intense emotions have value in a life threatening or imminent danger situation. The problem is when you have these phobias like a fear of flying, a fear of getting in a car, fear of going out of your home, fear of spiders or snakes, even if they're not on you or directly near to you where there would be that, those are the things that can be debilitating and really cause dysfunction within your life in one or more environments. Social anxiety disorder for people who have anxiety being around large crowds or even small crowds of people. Separation anxiety disorder when people have an intense level of dependence or security within another human being. And again, this is not talking about kids who have these dependencies on their parents or their guardians. We're talking about adult human beings or even teenage people who can't be away from somebody for too long. So, what are some of the causes of anxiety? Number one is stress. And we've already covered stress in many different, I'm sure in our previous videos, and we talk about how stress has an impact on us in negative ways because of the buildup levels of cortisol. These can be in the work environment, school environment, home environments, in relationships, regarding finances. Stress is debilitating, and intense stress and worry of future events is what causes the anxiety in itself.
Right. If you haven't gone and watched our video about freedom from stress, we really dive into kind of how to manage those stressful situations we do.
Yep.
So I would encourage you to um, go watch that. Again, our videos do build off each other, but you don't have to necessarily watch them in chronological order for you to get the content.
Exactly.
But there is benefit to doing that as well.
Sure. Yeah, we try to build upon the previous teachings to reinforce teachings is what Patrick's referring to. So again, they can stand alone in themselves, but at the same time, you'll get more out of these if you've gone through the entire series for sure.
Right.
Physiological needs not being met. So again, if you're not getting well fed, you're not getting enough water, you're not in a cleaner or safe environment, or if you're not getting adequate sleep, anxiety can definitely build up from a lack of those things getting met. Feeling bullied. This could be emotional bullying. This could be physical bullying. But the fear of being mistreated on an emotional level, mental level, or even the fear of being harmed can certainly cause levels of anxiety. Neglect, which is fear of not being taken care of or having your physiological needs met, or even emotional or mental needs met outside of for the positive things that we desire in interpersonal relationship with one another. Abuse, and this can come in forms of physical abuse, mental or emotional abuse, as well as sexual abuse. Enabling behaviors. Now, with enabling behaviors, what I mean by this is when you can't make decisions for yourself, or when you can't function on a daily basis and you're dependent on somebody else to give you that level of security or that level of confidence, it's these enabling behaviors by other people toward you that are causing you to feel uncomfortable when you're left alone to make those decisions on your own. So that's what enabling behaviors is somebody's enabling you to remain dependent on them. And that is an unhealthy nature and relationship with that person. Amphetamines and caffeine. So obviously things that speed up the autonomic nervous system, things that increase your heart rate and breathing, increase the levels of adrenaline in your brain. These types of things can have an impact on anxiety occurring. Like there's a lot of people when they have panic attacks, they happen because their caffeine levels are too high or they're taking some type of amphetamine.
Mm.
And then other biological impairments within the brain that may require psychotropic medication to correct. So, what are some of the worldly coping skills for anxiety? So, again, when we talk about worldly coping skills, we're not saying that they don't have any effect in a positive way. And we're not saying that avoid these things at all costs. What we're trying to say is there's better ways of dealing with these things. These ways may be necessary, but they're not 100% guaranteed to basically eliminate and be anxiety free or stress free or anger free or depression free, which is what we're teaching people how to do.
Right. And I'll say this because it kind of leads into our first point on this worldly coping skills slide here is one of the things we mentioned here. If you've been diagnosed and if you've been prescribed what we're about to talk about here, we're not saying don't stop taking it, because by all means, it is probably necessary for what you're going through at the current moment in your life. We're just saying
Sure.
ultimately, I would say there's probably some people out there that may need medication for the rest of their lives, but ultimately, I think the vast majority of people probably can if they go through a cognitive process of, I guess, changing the way they think, some sort of CBT type therapy. That I guess that's redundant, but in any case, some sort of CBT, they probably can at least scale back the medication they are on, which
Sure.
will lead into our point that we're about to make right now.
All right, let's go to that. So, psychotropic medications used to treat anxiety disorders include Xanax, Klonopin, Ativan, and Valium. And again, if you're prescribed these things, certainly just don't stop taking them. If you're ever going to not take medication, or if it's taken as needed, that's one thing. But if it's that is required to be taken every, once a day, twice a day, and it's prescribed by a medical professional, being a psychiatrist, family medical doctor, DO, could be a nurse practitioner, or even a psychiatrist. If you're prescribed medication, do not discontinue using that medication without consulting with that professional to begin with. With most anxiety disorders, if you get to the underlying problems that are causing and generating, and those things heal and repair themselves, it's possible to not need the psychotropic medication long term. Like I said, there's probably very few mental disorders that are in the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders that do require lifetime medication. Most of the general anxiety disorders, in fact, all the general anxiety disorders do not require psychotropic medication. Sometimes they're used in conjunction with both group and individual therapy, but they're not required. They're not like if you got bipolar disorder, you probably need psychotropic medication rest of your life. You have ADHD, probably need psychotropic medication rest of your life. You have something like schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, you probably need psychotropic medication. But the most of the diagnoses don't require lifelong. They're good intermediary to help you manage
Mm,
things. They're good for a period of time while
gotcha.
you're working through those things individually and cognitively to where you can manage them with your thoughts and managing your emotions, healing from experiential traumas, and repairing biological things in your life, getting adequate sleep, getting adequately fed, getting those physiological needs met in a healthy way. So, yeah, these things, Xanax, Klonopin, Ativan, Valium, they don't have to be lifelong crutches, so to say, but they are valuable in a short period of time when you don't have those skills and abilities to manage your emotions in a healthy way.
Right. Basically, what we're saying with these worldly coping skills is they're good for a time, but ultimately be searching for an answer to where you don't need them anymore. And
Absolutely.
to John's point, there's there about most diagnoses about anxiety don't require long-term medication. To my disclaimer just a little bit ago, probably demonstrates a little bit of my ignorance of the diagnosing process through psychology and your therapist. So
Yeah.
if you're on it, definitely continue and work with your medical professional in terms of scaling back whatever medication you are on.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, moving to the next one, talk therapy, which was what we just discussed. That's individual or group therapy. Exposure therapy is what they use for anxiety disorders, especially with phobias. They introduce in stages to help reduce the anxiety one feels when they're in the midst of that phobia. There was an example of somebody having a phobia of spiders, and it starts with looking at a picture of a spider, and then it starts with holding a picture of a spider, and then it has to do with being in the proximity of 40 to 50 feet away from a spider they could see like in an aquarium, and then slowly but surely moving more and more closer to that aquarium to the point where they could touch the glass of the aquarium, to where the lid could be off the aquarium. And if
Mm.
it gets to that point of progress and good results, to the point of even touching a tarantula or a spider. So again, exposure therapy has been shown to be effective with helping people reduce anxiety towards phobias. Group therapy is working with others. They have emotional anonymous type groups where it could be for anxiety, depression, anger, a number of different things, to where they can go in there and talk about their stuff. It's very much member led groups. It's not professionally led groups when you get to these types of groups, but they can be effective in conjunction with individual counseling. Deep breathing exercises is a treatment or a utility or a tool to use for people when they're starting to feel anxiety. Breathing in deep through the nose, going out through the mouth, closing the eyes, taking shoes off, grounding themselves to floors. There's all kinds of techniques that people can do to reduce anxiety. Sometimes there's even bilateral stimulation, which is in tactile. People will do like a butterfly technique where you cross your arms across your chest and then you slowly tap on each shoulder. This has shown through EMDR to help reduce anxiety for people who are starting to feel it in a situation. Again, these techniques aren't 100%. They're just tools to be able to be used. Like I said, it's been helpful in terms of certain cases when part of your treatment plan. Decreased or no caffeine. So again, because caffeine is a stimulant, it can increase and trigger anxiety related events. And if you have a susceptibility to get into those things to where you start to feel panic or you start to feel deep fear, and it basically immobilizes you or causes you to not be able to function, caffeine is not your friend. And then exercise. Almost in all of these different things that you may struggle with intense emotions or disorders, exercise definitely has physiological benefits to it. It releases endorphins and it boosts other types of heart rate and exercise and muscle tense, everything that can help you feel more healthy. And obviously it benefits you physiologically, and if your physiologically is good, it's more likely that your emotional, mental, and even experiential functions are even healthier in those moments as well. So let's move on to understanding anxiety. Realize your anxiety stems from the primary emotions of fear or worry. So again, realize that if it's okay to be afraid and it's okay to have worry about something that's unknown. It's a primary emotion that you can feel, and it's less intense than something like anxiety or terror would be. So if you can learn to be okay with being afraid or worried in a moment of time while you cognitively process through that, looking at it as objectively as you can within your subjective framework, then there can be benefit to why am I feeling this worry of uncertainty? And it's okay to feel that worry of an uncertainty. And if I did have the answer for that worry, then things could be different and I might not feel this type of worry or fear in the moment. Realize that your inner insecurities and unhealthy traumas contribute to your ongoing anxiety. So, if you haven't gone through our teaching on experiential healing, it would be an excellent time to revisit that or to go watch that for the first time because we really get into how do you experientially heal. We've always talked about biological healing and chemical healing and physical healing, but experiential healings are where our traumas are. So when people are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, they have unhealed experiential healing that hasn't happened yet. So they have all these experiential events that were stressful and worrisome and terrifying and horrifying in nature, and they haven't healed from those events that occurred. If you're getting triggered by things, you haven't healed yet. So again, please go watch that teaching. It's excellent. It'll help you understand why we're relating that to inner insecurities and unhealed traumas can contribute to anxiety. Realize that your anxiety is caused by a lack of confidence in your ability to manage moments in the future. So one of the things that I've taught to people a lot of times is you've already had hundreds, if not thousands, of experiences in your life that you've survived, coped with, faced, maybe
Mm.
even learned from or found awesome or got through. No,
Overcame.
yeah, overcame them is a good word. So do you trust your ability yet to overcome the ones you haven't faced yet? You faced hundreds, if not thousands. What about the few that are going to happen in the next few weeks that are uncertain? What about the few that are going to happen months from now or years from now? You have to learn to trust in your confidence of, I don't know how I'm going to be. I don't know how they're going to be. I don't know what the event's going to exactly be like, but I trust my ability to manage the moment when it comes.
Yeah, and I'd say that was a big one for me myself, just on like learning to just trust that it's gonna go how it's gonna go, and I'm gonna manage it how I'm gonna manage it. It was huge for me because I've never necessarily diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, but I would say for the majority of people that do suffer from anxiety, what if they're not diagnosed, it's worrying about the unknown, worrying about well how this situation goes, and if this happens, I'm gonna do this, and well if this happens, I'll do that, and things like that. It's like rather than just sit back and be like, it's gonna go how it's gonna go, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna manage and process through it how yeah, at that time after it happens will remove a lot of your anxiety if you can start looking at the future situations you may face that way rather than trying to control. We don't like the C word here. Rather than try and control and, micromanage, well, they do this, I'll do that, or if this happens, then I'm going to do that. Like there's benefit in preparation for sure for a situation you may face, but ultimately you got to sit back and say it's going to be how it's going to be. I'm going to manage it the best I know how.
Yeah, I mean, we've said a million times, control is an illusion.
Hmm.
You're programmed to do what you do and function how you function, and so is everybody else. And the best you can do is manage your part of that moment in the future. Just like you've
Right.
only been able to manage your part of that moment in the past. Now, you may have attempted to influence, manipulate, physically control people in your past. That's not a healthy way to cope with it. It's not a healthy way to deal with it. Sure, you can provide information and provide influence to people if it's in a mutually beneficial way. But for the most part, usually you're trying to control other people to behave properly so you can feel better. And that's what makes it unhealthy. You're not dealing with the things that are going on the inside of you that's causing the external behavior or feeling of emotion or anxieties or intense emotions and anxiety in the way that you've been suffering from them.
Right. And the preparation for those future moments that I mentioned a little bit ago was just what John said right there, is taking time to reflect on what's going on inside of me that causes me to feel anxious in this moment. And if you do that before the next moment happens, that's your preparation. And I guarantee that that moment will be different because you've gone through that process.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and move on to the next bullet point. Realize that your anxiety is caused by a belief that values the opinions of other imperfect people. So, again, a lot of times people are worried about what other people think of them, what other people are judging them by, what other people are going to tell other people about them. And when you place value and importance on the opinions or judgments or rumors of other imperfect people, you've submitted or subjected yourself to being an emotional and mental slave to that individual or to that group of people or to whoever. You're giving away that inner power. You have to just realize they're imperfect just like you are. They make mistakes just like you are. And if they're bad mouthing you or speaking negatively of you, that's because there's something unhealthy and wrong about them. And if you're worried about other people being influenced by it, healthy people don't get influenced by that shit. They're not, if somebody's buying into it without really getting to know you or understand your side of the story, you don't want them around as your friends or peers, anyways. They're not healthy or good people, anyways. They're not benefiting your life, anyways. So sometimes, like, take those moments of somebody rejecting you or not wanting to be your friend or not wanting to associate with you as a blessing. Don't be like, oh, I wish these people would really like me. I wish these people would really value me. Healthy people value healthy people. Healthy people don't value unhealthy people. So work on yourself, be yourself, and you'll attract like minded people.
Mm,
So, worrying about what other people are going to think, what other people are going to say, what other people are going to influence about you, potentially in a negative way, not your problem. Not your problem. Because if you make it your problem, you're subjecting yourself and opening yourself up to all these emotions and all these thoughts and all these beliefs that are going to be detrimental to your well being. Realize that anxiety is only useful in life threatening situations. Like we've said, with every intense emotion, we have 5 primary emotions: pleasure, surprise, fear, sadness, and disgust. Those are the 5 basic emotions that all other emotions intensify from or escalate from. So if you realize those 5 emotions are the basic ones, the ones that you can process through cognitively and really just understand, what is it I'm thinking that's causing this? What is it that I'm thinking and believing that's causing this? What is it I'm thinking, believing, and judging that's causing this one? When you start to understand that that's how it's generated and it's not an external force that's doing it to you, then you realize that you can manage your emotions independent of how others act and behave. So, but when you're in a life-threatening situation, anxiety would have value. For example, let's say, a saber-toothed tiger was coming to kill you. Your anxiety and your fear of that can help you survive because it puts you into fight and flight mode. You're either going to go have your adrenaline race up, you're going to pick up a rock, or you're going to run up a tree, or go to hide in a cave, or you're going to get away from or survive from that animal. Or if you were, let's say in the old days, kicked out of your village, because you weren't doing the right things and you were cocky and like, I don't need these people. And all of a sudden you're out in the woods all scared and worried. And all of a sudden the anxiety of, gee, I'm not sure I'm going to survive. Gee, I'm not sure I'm going to get fed. Maybe is going to help you comply to the rules of the village.
right.
So you can be part of that society again. Whereas if you're like, I don't have any fear, I don't have any anxiety, I don't need anybody, that's not an unhealthy viewpoint either. People who go to be hermits, not healthy. People who believe I don't want to be around people. I hate people. People piss me off. People hurt my feelings. I just don't like people. I like animals. That's you're not dealing with your stuff. You're not dealing with the inner problems that have caused that state of being and state of feeling within you. So
Right.
again, anxiety is useful in life-threatening situations. Any other situation, it's not healthy. It's not normal. So don't let people say, oh, anxiety is just a normal human condition. You just got to get used to acting right or behaving right or choosing right independent of your anxiety. No, you can get to the point of not feeling anxiety when you process through situations mentally in a healthy way. Let's talk about freedom from anxiety and what that looks like. First off, learn to build your self esteem, self confidence, and self worth. We've done a teaching in this series called develop or build your self esteem. Go check it out. It's excellent. It'll help give you the tools to help do this, therefore, minimizing and decreasing anxiety you can have that come from a lack of self esteem, self confidence, or self worth. Learn to build meaningful relationships with other people. Again, being alone is not good. It's not healthy. It's not how we were designed as human beings. We were designed to be an intimate relationship with a partner, and we're also designed to be an intimate relationship with friends and family. That's how we're designed for that type of communion, that type of tribal community, that type of mutual benefit of where we're helping to meet each other's needs on a healthy way, which would be, conversations. It could be recreational activities. It could be, times in terms of affection, monetary support, domestic support, family support, other things that are just mutually beneficial in the nature of relationship. You just enjoy that aspect of life.
Beyond that, on meaningful relationships, like outside of a romantic side of a relationship, look for people who aren't going to blow smoke up your ass. Like, I know there's John's one of them, but there's a few other people in my life that will call me on bullshit that I go through, and it's benefited me throughout my life because they've done that, because it causes me to stop and say, well, maybe I got to think about that a little bit. Find people in your life that will do that for you in a loving way, in a way that's not hateful, because
Right.
that will definitely benefit you if you can find a solid core group of people who are on your level, whatever that level is, who are on your level, who are willing to say, dude, what you're doing is not cool here. We got to adjust.
Yeah, you definitely don't want echo chambers when it comes down to your well-being. Being affirmed and validated is a path towards that enabling behaviors I talked about earlier.
Sure.
They're feeding things into you that are making you feel like you're perfect and the rest of the world around you is wrong. You poor thing. And that's going to
Right.
make you a victim and have a victim mentality. That's not something you want if you want to be free from this intense emotion in non-life threatening situations.
Sure.
Learn to be okay with a momentary feeling of fear or worry without it escalating into a more intense emotion. So, again, it's okay to be afraid or worried. Don't let it escalate into anger. Don't let it escalate into anxiety. Don't let it escalate into depression. And you do that by being okay with the momentary fear and worry and go, what is it about this moment that I don't feel okay with the unknown? Either the
Right.
unknown that's going on or the unknown that's imminent coming up hours from now, a day from now, weeks from now.
We'll
So
get
again,
more into exactly what that process looks like when we start unpacking emotion management. I don't think we've gotten to that series yet.
no, emotion management, we're really going to get in depth with what's the internal processes and what they look like and how they affect one another. Absolutely good point
Right.
there.
And a couple other practical ways of like things I've used as well to what that looked like starting out, what emotion management looked like starting out. We've teased it a few times here on this workshop series, so it's coming. What exactly the emotion management and not letting it escalate into an intense emotion looks like. But for now, just understand once you start feeling those things, step them. You can. There is a way to step them back and say, "This is stemming from fear. This is stemming from worry. Why is it stemming from fear or worry?" And so forth. We'll get into in a little bit later series.
Absolutely. Learn to trust your ability to manage future moments. And I guess, already touched on this one way back when is, you've already faced all those prior moments and survived them, succeeded in them. You got to trust that you can do that again tomorrow. You can do that a week from now. You've already had hundreds, if not thousands, of unknown moments in the past that you managed. Realize those future ones are not much different. It's just
Right.
an unknown that when you get there, you're going to figure it out just like you have all the other ones.
Sure.
Learn to have an empathetic view of those who would threaten, intimidate, or bully you or others. Again, when I talk about empathy, it's not condoning or justifying the poor behavior of other imperfect people. It's having cognitive or emotional empathy means that you're looking at the world through their view and wondering what it is that's driving that poor behavior of bullying or intimidating or threatening you. Something insecure inside them is going on. Something broken and healthy inside them is going on that causes it. Could have happened in their childhood, could have happened when they were a baby, could have happened when they were teenagers, could have happened from a number of different abuses or neglectful situations in their life. It doesn't justify what they're doing, it doesn't validate what they're doing, but again, it's you not placing value on it. You're not going, their opinion matters, their viewpoint. Now, if somebody's physically kicking your ass, well, get the authorities involved, get the law involved, contact somebody that will put an imminent stop to it. Get yourself out of the environment. Go to a shelter. Go to a friend's house that you trust. Go to a family member's house that you trust. Your physical safety should never be put in jeopardy because you're hoping something worse won't happen. You need to take action when people are being physically, sexually abusive towards you in those moments. Verbal and mental, emotional abuse that people talk about, that stuff you can overcome independent. Anybody can come at me with any type of abuse on a emotional level, a mental level. It's not going to have any effect on me because I don't place value on it. I have empathy for why they're acting poorly, and I don't personalize it because I realize it has nothing to do with me and everything to do with what's wrong with them. I'll say that again. It has nothing, their poor behavior has nothing to do with me, even though they're directing it at me. It has everything to do with what's unhealthy about them, what's broken or impaired within them. And I have empathy because I realize if I was them, I would be acting that way too. If I had their biological state of being, if I had all their cognition, all their experiential stuff that's happened, all their emotional states of being, I would do exactly what they do. That's where that humility piece comes in that's ever so important in emotion management that we talk about. And so is empathy. If you don't have empathy for assailants, you're not going to heal. You're not going to be free from anxiety and depression and anger like we talk about. And I speak passionately about it because it's the bottom line. You got to do it. You got to be able to develop it. You got to have it. If you don't, healing is not going to occur. Freedom from anxiety is not going to occur. Freedom from stress, freedom from anger, freedom from depression, not happening. You got to have that. Again, understanding and humility and empathy and, again, forgiveness. And we've talked about these things. We'll talk about them more. Again, check out experiential healing. We talk about that. Learn to manage abandonment and rejection. And again, our perception of somebody abandoning us and rejecting us has a deep hurt and a worry about it. Because again, we as human beings crave intimate and healthy relationships. So when we feel one's ending, it can be worrisome. It could be fearful to some degree. Letting it escalate into intense anxiety is what we got to make sure we're not doing. We got to be able to get back to fear, worry. Why am I fearing and worrying the loss or the imminent, perhaps, abandonment or rejection of somebody? And again, I'm not talking about children who go through this. They have very malleable minds. They don't have the resilience, the cognitive thinking and reasoning that an adult has. They just don't. Brain doesn't stop developing until around 25 years old, if not older. Even for they're thinking some studies, men's brains don't even stop developing until they're around 30. But again, it gets down to, we're not talking about people who are vulnerable like children. We're not talking about people who are vulnerable like the elderly, especially when they get into things of dementia and Alzheimer's. We're just talking about the normal adult
Human mind.
human being that's either suffering or not suffering from all these things that are going on. So again, learn to manage abandonment and rejection. Realize if people don't want to be part of your life, that's okay.
Right. There's
There's
7 billion people on this planet.
thank you. You just
You were just about to say that, weren't you? There's 7 billion people on this planet. We'll even step it back a little bit because we live in America. There's 300 million people in America. We live in Phoenix. There's like 8 million,
I
something
don't
like
know.
that. Something around there.
There's plenty of
You'll find
people.
a good tip that I was taught about relationships and them ending is it's not the person you miss, it's the feelings created. And I'll tell you this, those feelings that that person created can be created by another person that you run into who fits a similar category or meets those needs in a similar way, whether it's a friendship, uh, intimate relationship, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, or a spouse or a parent, whatever that is, someone else can meet those in a similar fashion and
Yeah.
create that positive feeling for you. Once I learned that, I was able to be like, hey, this relationship's ending. That's okay. I'm going to find something elsewhere. And it's not a fuck you to that relationship. It's,
No.
hey, I'm cool with this. It's the natural way this was always going to go, and I stopped trying to control the relationships that were in my life.
Yeah, you were just your authentic self, and you were like, I'm going to authentically attract what I'm like. And
Right.
that's the healthy way to pursue it. And,
Sure.
it's like, your old version of your relationship, you're probably making demands. And the new version of relationship, you're willing to meet, and,
Right.
and accept. And those things make it very, very different because it gets rid of the insecurities and the fears of not being good enough or not being loved enough or not being wanted enough. And you can't make people want you. But there'll be people who do want you. There'll be people who do love you. There'll be people who do care about you. People who do want to spend time recreationally with you. So
Right.
that's what we're talking about in this. Excellent, excellent coverage of that, Pat. Learn to be content and calm in any situation. Again, you stop having expectations for what things will be and you expect things to be what they are. So I'm like, I when people said it, I said, stop having unrealistic expectations. People get confused by this when I say it. So I say, all right, it's unrealistic expectations doesn't mean what's right and wrong or moral or immoral or healthy or unhealthy. An unrealistic expectation is when you expect somebody to do something other than what they do. That's what makes it unrealistic because you don't know what impairments are going on within that person. You don't know what flaws are going on within that person. You don't know what types of problems or brokenness that are going on inside that person that's causing a behavior that you're dissatisfied with. So again, expect people to do exactly what they do and you'll never be disappointed again. You'll never be frustrated again. You'll never be annoyed again if you truly hold that to be true. And that is the end of our Freedom from Anxiety video. Again, if you've been
Woo!
watching live and you have questions, I'm sure Patrick and I are in the live chat watching and typing along. If you have questions and you're watching this on replay, go ahead and leave some comments below. On your way out, hit the subscribe button so that you get updates on when we're doing these other videos. And hit that bell. You'll get the updates. You'll know when these things are going live. You'll be ready for when we do our live shows together, which may include call-ins so people can call in and actually ask questions, or we'll pull them up on a panel and bring them into the live chat and we can answer people's questions and go through different scenarios or situations that are causing a number of different things, including ones like this with anxiety.
Sounds good.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time and keep becoming better versions of yourself. We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.
Bye.